We have started with 3 games in the Italian game where I used the queenside castling. And now I would like to show you the games from the Ruy Lopez, where I managed to conduct the attack also castling to the queen side. And I would like to start with my game against Lithuanian Grandmaster Šarūnas Sulskis. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a4, bishop a4, knight f6, and now the move queen e2 that I have been playing since my childhood. Also nowadays I regularly choose this variation. Also besides queen e2 I can castle, I can play d3, so the preparation of black against me is rather difficult, because sometimes even myself I don't know until the last moment which variation I would choose. So Šarūnas is choosing the best setup and develops the bishop to c5. After my game against Anishuk in Beijing, it is theoretical to develop the bishop to c5. Immediately or after the inclusion of the move b5, bishop b3, bishop c5. It is very important to have this bishop active in order to control this center. With bishop on c5, white cannot easily play c3 and d4. But with the bishop on c5, moved away from the black king, white has possibilities to create the attack. So now c3, castle, d3. Analogically, in the same way as in the Italian, I develop my pieces. Rook e8, and now the bishop g5. At this position, this move is not extremely dangerous for black, because the bishop is still on c5 and can return to e7. Of course, if the black bishop would already stand on a7, his position would be much worse. So now h6, bishop h4, bishop e7, and now knight b d2. I am trying to finish the development and also preparing castling to the queen side. As you see, that white is keeping both options available, and it is very difficult for black to decide where really white would choose to castle. So if now black will try to create a counterplay on the queen side, I will be ready to castle to the king side. So knight h5. So if not knight h5 but the move knight h7, then I will simply play bishop g3, attacking the pawn on e5. Then maybe I would castle to the king side and play d4, and I will play positionally, so I will not go for attack. But in the game, black played knight h5, and now white can play bishop g3. Not only can, but also must, because I cannot exchange my bishop on a7 here, because the square f4 will be weakened. And if I will play g3 at some point, then I will also achieve nothing. So in order to play for initiative, for attack, I must keep this bishop on g3, because if black takes on g3, then the h line will be open. Bishop f6, and now knight f1. It is very important to keep the position closed, because when black will take on g3, then after hd3 he has the advantage of the pair of bishops. So any opening of the position will be very useful for him. So, as I've already said, after exchange on a3, the h line is already open. So the rook h1 is plain, and the plan of white would be the following. I want to play knight e3, g4, rook h5, then I want to castle, then my rook from d1 will go to h1, and I want to play g4, g5. So this is the idea that I'm going to fulfill now. b5, bishop b3, very important move. So the idea is to force black to play knight a5 here, that the knight on a5 will be far away from the center. So if in this position I play bishop c2 immediately, then black is playing d5, and the knight on c6 is standing rather well, close to the center. So first I make black to play knight e5, otherwise he will never conduct the move d5. And after knight e5, bishop c2, d5, the knight is clearly on a5, standing worse than on c6. So here I take on d5. Very important move to make. I'm not afraid of giving up the center, because further black will not be able to open the position. And after queen d5, knight e3, queen d8, knight d2, white is going to put knight d2 to e4. Then white will play g3, g4, and then he will have a complete blockade over the white squares. Then at some point white will castle to the queen side, play rook h5, rook dh1, then he wants to play g5 and go for attack. Knight, bishop b7, knight e4. So white is trying to fulfill his plan, and here in this position it was necessary for black to take on e4, and after d e4 white is better and much better, but black is keeping some defensive resources, because bishop f6 is standing close to the king and can be used in defense. In the game black decided to exchange another his bishop, so he played bishop g5. But this move is not good, because now black has one piece less defending his king, and it is much easier now for white to develop the attack. So now I play rook h5, queen g6, and now I castle to the queen side. Also now my bishop c2 will participate in the attack when I will play d3, d4. Here black played c5, but this move lose material, because now d4 is very strong. Bishop e4, dc5, and white wins a pawn. Not only he has an extra pawn, but also attacking possibilities. So the rest is not so difficult for white. But let's look how the game finished. Knight b7, rook d5, bishop c2, king c2, f6, knight e3, rook d8, and now the passed pawn c5 is trained to queen. So I play c6, rook d5, knight d5, knight c5, and c7. Now we have the protected passed pawn on c7. Now white is threatening to win the queen, playing knight e7, so queen f7 is forced, Now queen f3, knight e6, and here in this position white can win with the help of tactic, playing rook h6. So gh6, knight f6. So after knight c7, white also wins because it is not possible to play queen c7 now, because now queen d5, queen f7, and rook h8 winning. But after rook d8, he can play queen g4, queen a2, and now rook h4, queen a1, king c2, and black doesn't have any check left. After f5, rook h8, black resigned, because after king h8, white plays queen h4, winning the rook on d8 with check.